ourselves a very odd opening.
This is fantastic because we were talking about how TTOne is going to have to adapt to this map because a lot of times it can favor the Zerg players, and that is exactly what he's doing. He realizes, oh man, Desert Oasis, want to get off this map as soon as I can, and so he does have that contained set up. That is going to be almost impossible to break here in the early game, so Slush is really going to have to change it, although he did scout that with the Overlord exceptionally early, so he knows exactly what's headed his way, and I'm sure at the higher level of play, this is something he's dealt with before, so we'll just see if he remembers how to deal with it.
And we do see double gas going down for TTOne now that he's feeling safe, that he's contained his opponent, that there's not going to be an expansion anytime soon. He's going to go ahead and get as much gas as possible for some big late game plays incoming. Very curious to see how he's going to play that out. Wouldn't mind some sort of big Phoenix play, wouldn't even mind a very fast expansion. He has a lot of options at this point. This is very difficult for Zergs to deal with on Desert Oasis.
So do you think that TT1 is going to continue placing cannons here, or has he pretty much got the contain he wants so he can safely, you know, get his own expansion? It looks like he's actually walling himself in super tight there, so possibly going to be going, I would assume, for higher tech units.
You know, I really love this play, just making one cannon, because one cannon does the exact same thing as 6 or 7 cannons. It just forces Slush to do a very long-term one-basing strategy. There's the Baneling nest going down, and this is exactly what TT1 wants. He wants Slush to waste money on things that are not another expansion. Cuts down on all the sorts of possibilities that TT1 has to deal with, and as we can see, walling himself off safely, and ooh, looks like he's getting gateways. He's also getting Warp Gate at the Cybernetics core. We're going to find out as it's finishing right now.
I do want to mention that Slush actually hit a bunch of his Zerglings. He was trying to kite them around away from the vision of that probe, which did just get taken out, although I'm sure that TT1, I'm just going to check his vision here. Yes, he did see that Baneling nest, and so like you said, that's exactly what he wants. He's kind of setting the pace of this game, and a Baneling bust isn't really going to work on this tight wall in that TT1 has at his base. I mean, he's got a gateway, the Cybernetics core, even the Forge helping out with that wall. It does make it very sturdy, and as a Protoss player, if you can just micro right, you can basically have a Zealot tank, you know, an innumerable amount of those Banelings, and so TT1's got to be feeling really good right now. His contain's working perfectly. Here comes the Baneling bust now outside the Zerg player. He had just enough. He calculated that out perfectly, and now here come the Zerglings completely ignoring that poor lonely cannon.
And we got to go to the production tab to see what Slush is making. Yes, more drones. Excellent response. Don't want to commit to some sort of huge all-in attack. There is one drone already gearing up to take the expansion. TT1 is going to be in absolutely fine shape. He has a sentry going down. He is getting +1 attack, and wow, 4 gateways on 1 base. This is a very unusual choice at this point to have walled himself off and gone 4 gate. He really is trying to end this game quickly, but here come a bunch of Zerglings at the front. They see that there is a cannon, they see that there is a sentry, and decide to back off.
They probably could have got some hits there, but regardless, he knew that he wasn't going to be able to break down that wall, so he did back out. The sentry not even bothering with the force field on that ramp, and now that the photon cannon has completed, TT1 is completely safe. Now, if he wants to actually get outside of his base, he's either going to have to turn these into warp gates, which is almost done, or break down one of these buildings, although really you don't want to get rid of any of those buildings, so they'll have to figure out a way to get out of there safely, and it does look like he's actually putting pylons on the very outskirts of his base, so could possibly warp outside, and then, you know, just kind of go from there to protect the entrance. Do note Slush finally scouting with that Overlord to see exactly what's going on. Of course, it will get taken out, though, by that sentry.
Now, let's go to the vision of that Overlord. Wow, it is going to get to see all 4 of those gateways, so Slush knows that he is under the gun, but surprisingly enough, this Baneling nest, which really doesn't come into play too much in Zerg vs. Protoss, except in the early game, is going to be a huge boon for Slush at this point in time. He can get a handful of Banelings and manage those Zealots very well. Traditionally, Zealots are basically invincible to Zerglings, so that's going to be a very big benefit that he does have the Baneling nest, and ooh, like you were saying, oh, whoopsie daisies, throwing down a Guardian shield.
Yeah, that's definitely a misclick there. He is not going to be too happy about that. You definitely need that energy, especially once those Zerglings start trying to get a surround on you. You want to throw down the force field on top of your Zealots or right next to them so that the Zerglings cannot get a very good surround. He did have to kill that gateway. Do note, though, that TT1 threw down that gateway that he just killed, and he's apparently closing his front door once again by throwing down that gateway. So he will, I would assume, warp in units outside of his base from now on, and that's it's great because we were talking about Zergling run-bys on this map. He is doing everything he can possibly think of to prevent any Zerglings from just running into the main, gonna force the pressure onto the Zerg and make the Zerg be defensive, which is exactly what you want as a Protoss.
But I do not think this attack is going to work at all, and here I am inadvertently pinging the minimap once again. This is all in for TT1. He is doing everything he can to end this game right now. For Warp Gate, it's fine if you want to do a little push and then back up and take an expansion, but if you're going 5 Warp Gate with a +1 upgrade, you are just begging for the game to be over as fast as possible, and there's Slush making plenty of those Banelings. It's going to be so hard for those Zealots to really take effect with that many Banelings there, but force fields are going to be the key. If he can force field well against these Banelings, he's going to be able to pull through.
Do you note that Slush was actually hiding some Banelings over here? I don't know that TTOne can see them. They're just barely out of the vision. So if he can get a good flank with those Banelings, that will do a lot of damage. That is good preparation here for Slush. He knows exactly the side that TTOne is going to attack. So right now it does look like TTOne's going to be moving in here, and this battle is going to be epic. Zerglings are running in there.
The force fields to try to block the Banelings, but Banelings coming in from behind. Is he going to see them? No. Oh, some huge hits going down on those sentries, but it doesn't look like that Slush actually has enough units. Banelings trying to do a little bit more damage. Is that Spire done? Yes, it is. There are really not that many anti-air units, and the macro of Slush is incredible, getting plenty of Zerglings to be able to deal with it, but still, that +1 upgrade is just a little bit too much. One Mutalisk out right now and almost no anti-air for TT1.
There is only that one sentry, which was also focus fired there by that Zergling. Good control with Slush with his few remaining ground forces to make sure his Mutas can do as much damage as possible. And there come a lot more reinforcing Zerglings. They are definitely going to get a surround on these Zealots. No, they do back out, but the Mutas are just slowly picking away, preventing these Zealots from recharging their shields. Every time they get hit, it does reset that timer.
An absolute brilliance by Slush moving down here to pick off any anti-air units, or at the very least do damage to them, so these Mutalisks can stay relevant as the game goes on. And Slush somehow didn't lose that expansion, sending guys back to mine. Is he getting a second queen? No, the queen in his main is getting a little bit high on energy. He's getting a little bit flustered during the course of this attack, but spine crawlers are going down. He's going to be able to defend.
Do note, though, that TT1 has not expanded during this, like you mentioned, all in at this point, so he's gotten every unit he can scrape together right now, and the spine crawlers, however, are not going to finish. Is there going to be enough Zerglings and Mutas, though? Just looking at the unit counting station right now, there is still only 4 Mutas, which is not enough to deal with these Stalkers. This expansion definitely could go down, which would even this out, and can he get up the ramp, though, before that Slush's macro kicks in?
I mean, this is a huge, huge critical decision for Slush. He's just basically abandoning his main. Oh, and huge counterattack with the Mutalisks. He needs to kill off these Stalkers and then kill off this key pylon, but it looks like TT1 just going to go for it, just going to jump directly into the main. Oh, God, Slush needs to kill off that pylon, but I don't know if he has enough time. Slush trying to add on as many Zerglings as he can. Wouldn't be a bad idea to get some Banelings, and oh, the Overlords are all taken out by TT1.
There was 5 or 6 Overlords there, and I was questioning that for just a second. Then I realized it's TT1. He knows what's up. That Zerg is supply blocked to the extreme. He's got 50 supply with only 26 right now. Just killed another Overlord. So if he has enough units to end this right now, there's going to be 0 reinforcing units now. And the Banelings trying to get in.
They're trying to get in. The Mutalisks are doing a good job with damaging. And then, oh, there's the huge hits, taking out a ton of those units. But it looks like there are just too many Stalkers. Is he going to get enough units? He needs to vomit more larvae. He's picking off the weakened Zealots. Very nice control there by Slush, but he is under the gun right now. He is trying to defend with everything that he can.
Do note that Slush is now once again supply blocked. He does have more reinforcing units on the way, but he lost 2 more Overlords. I think there's only a handful of Overlords left on this map, so if TT1 can fight,
there's
Slush
the
GG's.
Good game. Wow, what an intense all-in. I mean, really, I almost want to reload that replay and see how much money he had left over at the end of that series, because honestly, that was the longest all-in I have ever seen. He was almost broke by the end of that.
That was fantastic play by TT1. I mean, it's just great that he was able to do that build order and make it absolutely work for that map. And, you know, we were talking about that because those Zergling run-bys are so difficult to deal with. He's like, you know what, I got this sweet build on Desert Oasis, and he made it absolutely work. So we're going to go ahead and join up this game. That was a fantastic game there, though I think that Protoss can learn a lot from that game because the Zerg played pretty standard, nothing too crazy. And TT1 was just aggressive from the beginning. You want to get the Zerg defensive on that map, otherwise those Zerglings are just going to ruin your world.
Yeah, but it was amazingly close for an all-in play. I mean, going for Warp Gate, generally, you have a little bit more comfort because you know you're up against a small number of Roaches, small number of Hydras, maybe a lot of Zerglings, but the force fields can pull you through. But the Baneling nest was very clearly up. That was a huge risk for TT1 to pull that off. So when the Baneling sandwich happened at the start, he was so close to losing there, but again, with 5 Warp Gates making that many Zealots, it's very hard for your macro to fall behind.
And yeah, that sandwich was perfect. Like you were mentioning before, you don't see Banelings that often in ZVP, but it did a lot more damage than I had expected. So we are going to wait for these players to get ready. There we go, changing their colors. It does look like they have chosen Metalopolis for map number 2, and I feel like I'm just saying Metalopolis, Metalopolis, Metalopolis for game 2.
Love choosing Metalopolis because it is the perhaps no standard map. There's really very few gimmicks on it. Lost Temple, another standard map, but there's that cliff overlooking your high ground, that feels a little bit weird. Steps of War, really close positions. But Metalopolis, generally very far apart, a lot of expansions to take, and this is going to be Slush's comfort zone, and ooh, Slush is going to be very happy. He is not in proxy positions. He is at the bottom as the red Zerg, because again, he is the favored player in this series, and in the left is TTOne as the blue Protoss.
An interesting dynamic about this map is the spawn locations. We've seen time and time again on this map, simply because players have chosen a lot, that where you spawn in relation to your opponent is going to dictate the pace of the game, and you really have to have build orders prepared just based specifically on where you spawn on the map. And a lot of people may not realize how huge of a difference that can make on 4-player maps, because it basically changes the dynamic of where your units are going to be, where you need to send your units at what time, completely changes the pace of the game, and Slush is going to be able to scout his opponent very, very early and know exactly what's up right from the start.
Absolutely, and as we can see just looking at the mini-map, when Slush takes his natural expansion, he's expanding away from TT1, and his third base expanding away from TT1. If TT1 was at this right position, no matter where Zerg chose to expand, he would be putting himself closer and closer to that Protoss. So players always need to have 2 build orders prepared on this map at least, and it looks like Slush is poking in at the very outside edge. Let's see if he will back off and try to hide his position.
A lot of Zerg players do want to do that, where if you can back it out just in time, that you won't reveal to your opponent exactly where you are, although I think that pylon is actually going to spot it there. But not a bad choice to do that either, because if you're getting proxied, you want to make sure you know about it. You want to know if there's going to be any buildings outside your base, you know, some sort of 2-gate play in the center of the map. And so he's like, it's worth it to reveal my location. One thing I've seen players do, though, is they will send that Overlord back and quickly send a drone out to try and confuse your opponent as to where exactly they are. And there is actually going to be a 2-gate, but it isn't proxied.
Yeah, 2-gate, always a strong opening against Zerg. You get so many Zealots that you force the Zerg to either go 1-base Roach or 1-base lots of Zerglings. Again, you deny an expansion. The really tip-top Zerg players figure out ways to be able to defend that expansion, but it's still so tough that most even opt not to. And look at TT1 saving up that Chrono Boost, Chrono Boosting that first Zealot right off the bat, rally to his opponent's base. Let's see how Slush is going to respond.
I do like TT1's confidence here. He's like, an Overlord scouting this. I don't even care, man, because I can make 2-gate work. And it's really important to note that it does force the Zerg on 1 base, like you said, and players trying to defend against that. I've seen Hydra do it, try and defend this countless times, and you really are forced into a situation where you are on the 1 base. The Roach Warren is just now going down for Slush, so he's going to play it more standard. This is what the majority of Zerg players would do, because if you don't cancel your hatchery and it gets destroyed, I mean, you are so far behind, and you definitely don't want to be far behind against a 2-gate, because if you can hold it off, at least you're in a fairly comfortable position.
Yeah, and one thing you've heard us say so many times, that what makes a good player good is little tiny advantages, and somehow TT1 has managed to sneak in an assimilator while only delaying his Zealot production by just a very tiny amount. That is so good, because as we can see, he's getting his Cybernetics core. Most often when you do make that many Zealots early on, you don't have enough money for gas, you get delayed with your tech, but not TT1, playing very well. Slush finally getting that Roach Warren out, and is going to be able to expand very soon.
I really like how TT1 has stopped making Zealots here to get his macro back on track. I think what he wants to do is dictate the pace of the game here, where he forced his opponent onto 1-base Roach. I mean, Slush is forced to get out a couple of Roaches to hold this rush, and so TT1 is probably really confident going against this, because, I mean, that's a pretty standard, basically, build order for the Zerg in reaction to dealing with this 2-gate attack, and so TT1 is probably pretty comfortable right now, because he basically forced the Zerg into going this build, so we'll see what he has in store to respond to it.
And here's the magic of 2-gate. It's just getting 2 Stalkers out. Even 1 Stalker out plus Zealots, so hard for Zerg to deal with. I'm loving the fact that Slush is getting Zergling speed. That's going to help him be able to deny this. But again, the Roaches are so good against Zealots until 1 or 2 Stalkers pop out. So TT1 has a huge window to be aggressive. Again, let's see if he decides to do it. His second gas has just gone down. He's also getting Warp Gate. He's continuing to not miss any pylons. Very hard to do when you're in a tough tournament situation. You get tunnel vision, you forget about that. But again, very solid play by both players.
So what do you expect TT1 to be doing after this response? Because he does have those 2 Stalkers, but what kind of tech path would he go?
Why is he not attacking? That's what I'm thinking. You should move out to attack. Sure, you can wait for a sentry, so that way you can force field your ramps, so you can play defensively against a counter, but you should be moving out. Slush is getting the huge chance to make a lot of Zerglings now, and there's a Baneling nest going down.
Once again.
Very interesting play by Slush, and here comes TT1, finally moving down the ramp. And now pulling back. That is, I do not like that. I'm not even seeing him make any other tech structures. Is it going to be a Robo Bay? Oh, it's a Stargate. Man, that's a very, very unusual play by TTOne.
Definitely getting that Stargate out a little bit late, and I'm wondering if Slush is hoping that TTOne just kind of stays at his door, because one Baneling at that door, if it splashes all those units, it could definitely be lights out for TTOne, so it's kind of curious that he is not moving out, as I think the Banelings, at least a couple, will be done by the time he can actually march out across the map. Do note, though, that Slush has his own expansion on the way right now. No drones mining from that location yet. There are so many speedlings on the map right now, and a little back and forth here as TTOne is not sure